Good morning, good afternoon, or for Shakan, very late evening. Shakan, I really appreciate you actually joining us at almost 11 o'clock, 10:30 your night. We've been on the phone for half an hour chatting. It looks like you're going to have a ton of fun with this. I'm actually so looking forward to it. She's actually still in the office, and the janitors were in there cleaning up and banging around. So hopefully we actually resolve that. Shakan, if I can get you to go ahead and start your screen sharing, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself once we can see your computer. So, and then
Sure,
we're gonna,
Charles. Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and lock the viewport onto you as soon as we can see it. So you're looking at me, looking at you, looking at me. So why don't we go ahead and bring up your PowerPoint slides?
Right. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
We can. It looked great. So what I'm going to do is have you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what are we going to look at today?
Right. Hi, everyone. A quick introduction about me. My name is Shakun Grover. I'm a program manager in the Visio team in Microsoft, and I'm really excited to be doing this webinar today. So today we are going to talk about, we will see how unification of Power BI dashboards and Visio diagrams can help achieve efficiencies in businesses. Charles, we're good to go? Right. So the agenda for today is I will briefly talk about Visio for the benefit of those of you who might be frequent Power BI users, but not to adapt with the Visio. Further on, I'll take you through how you can create powerful unified dashboards using Visio and Power BI together. Okay. So this particular statement captures a problem, the solution to which we are going to talk about today. That human attention is scarce and it becomes important to create dashboards and reports which highlight things that need attention. Before going further, I'll take you through a short story which will reiterate the power of visuals. So there was an elephant in a dark room, and some folks were asked to identify it. People would touch it, feel it, to try to identify what is it there in the room, in the dark room. So someone, by feeling its trunk, declared that probably it's a water pipe. Another felt the ear and inferred that it is a fan. So another, by feeling its leg, thought it's a pillar, and so on. So whatever they experienced was in isolation and led them to conclude on incomplete and flawed conclusions. So the extension of the story also goes on to the fact that even if you are in a well-lit room, but if you are looking at only some parts of what's in front of you, you still won't recognize what you're dealing with, or worse still, you'll end up with flawed conclusions. So we'll talk about this in context of how intelligence, when seen with Visio, gives the whole picture. I hope this story made a bit of sense to you, and you realize the power of visuals in reports and everywhere else.
You know, that's one of my favorite stories. I think it describes my life.
Surely, Charles, we do have a very limited vision about things.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as I promised, a very brief introduction about Visio, because I realized that we might have Power BI users who might not know about Visio. So, Visio is an industry-leading diagramming solution, and it is often called the best invention since pen and paper. So, who exactly uses Visio? So, irrespective of the domain or industry that you're operating in, Visio still finds a use. Some of our top customers actually use Visio because it provides a breadth of diagramming and modeling capabilities. So if you can see, we have template groups of templates and diagrams which can be created. For example, org charts for the business domain, education templates, electrical diagrams in the electrical domain, process flows in the flowchart category. Then we have floor plans, probably office floor plans, store plans, networking diagrams. So all of these, I'll show you some of the examples of Visio diagrams today, and then we'll go through how we can use these Visio diagrams in Power BI reports. Make sense? Right, Charles?
It does. And the reason for the pause is I have to unmute myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So now moving on to how you can use these complementary tools together. Okay, so here I will actually take you to a demo. These slides I just have for backup. Let's start from here. So as you can see here, this is a report. This report which I prepared for a business process, let's say a home loan approval process. Now, in this dashboard or report, you can see that there are two charts. The first chart shows the expected ticket SLA for each step in the home loan approval process, expected ticket SLA as well as the actual ticket SLA. And in the second chart, you would see the resources allocated to each of these steps in the home loan approval process. So you can go ahead and check what is the SLA for, let's say, one step. These are the normal Power BI interactions, and there are a few inferences that you can probably get from this kind of a dashboard. Now let's look at how, if you add a Visio diagram to this dashboard, how it will be more enriched and the kind of insights we can get from that kind of a dashboard. It will take, yeah, so it's loaded already. So this surely will give you a lot more idea about how the business is running, about how well the process is performing. So you can see the loan approval process, all the steps are listed in the form of a flow chart. This diagram was created in Visio and was embedded here. I'll take you through the create process separately, but just to let you know what kind of insights you can draw from this kind of a dashboard. Now you can see this property risk management step is marked red. If you select this, it will show that the expected ticket SLA is much lower, and there's a lot of time. There are a lot of tickets that are getting stuck at this step in the process. At the same time, you would also see that the resources allocated are probably lesser than some of the other steps, which are green right now. So, as an end user, as a business leader, you may want to assign more resources to this particular step and probably resolve your problem. So this is one kind of an example where you can draw, beneficial insights just by having a diagram in your report instead of just having data, which is all great data, but it just gets enriched with the Visio diagram. This was one example that I had for you today. Let's go to another example. Now, this report, it is about inventory monitoring for a store. If you see this chart here, these charts here would tell you about the stock for each item in a store. This chart here tells you about the sales and target items in a store. Same goes for this chart. So while you can see that this stock for suit coat is very high, is the highest on the floor. The target is not being met for this particular item, right? Same goes for tree dress. The stock is low, but the sales are high. So these are kind of limited insights where we feel that adding a Visio diagram to it will enrich it to unimaginable extent. Let us look at a dashboard where we have embedded a Visio diagram. Okay, so it's taking a bit of time to load. Yeah, it's right there. So now if you see, this is the floor plan of the store the data for which we saw just now. Now in this store plan, if you look at this part of the diagram, so it will highlight this area. Now you can see that this particular stock, which is the suit coat, the stock is full here, but the sales are very much less compared to the target. So you can also see here that there's work in progress on this part of the floor, right? Now you can see at this part of the floor, so the sales are exceeding the target. The stock is low. Same goes for this part of the floor and this part of the floor. Now, if you observe carefully, there are entrances near this part of the floor. There are entrances near even the left part of the floor. So the kind of insights from which we can get from this dashboard is that the back part of the store doesn't sell well, also because there's work in progress in this area, whereas this part is selling very well and needs to be restocked frequently. So these are some of the insights that you can draw from Visio enriched dashboards. You can actually go ahead and play around with some of these reports that we have hosted at a particular link. This is the link that was posted in the chat by Charles earlier. I will have it somewhere in the deck, further in the deck. So this is what we have covered already. I had some backup slides for it. Yeah. So these are the examples that we can look at. So inventory monitoring we just covered. You can have an organizational chart, a hierarchical chart where performance of employees can be tracked. Same goes for a root cause analysis chart. So all of these are diagrams which are created in Visio, and we further go on and embed them in Power BI reports. So this is the link I was talking about. It's aka.ms. Go check out Visio Visual Playground. So this will take you to a nice set of reports. So we have 6 reports hosted here. Yeah. So let's talk about this report here. So this is for temperature monitoring in an office, let's say. So their employees who have occupied these rooms here. This Visio diagram now is linked to data such that if you select this shape, now you can see the expected room temperature is higher than the temperature. The observed room temperature is higher than the expected temperature here. This basically means for these 2 rooms. So again, if you see the real world context that Visio brings in here is that there are appliances near this area, near these 2 offices, which probably might be increasing the temperature for this area. Okay, let's move ahead, see some more examples. Yeah, this we'll cover later. Okay, so this is the playbook that you can go and play around with and probably get used to how this works. Okay, so
Sakan,
now
I'm gonna interrupt you just for a second.
Right.
My Spanish is actually kind of rusty, but I have to actually say, Diego Lucas says Gajanel, which I think actually means that is amazing. And if you actually directly translate it, that's actually how dogs bark in Spanish. So you get a dog barking applaud, which is my first dog barking applaud on any webinar that I've gotten so far. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt. You continue on. And Diego, thanks for the kind comments.
Thank you so much. That was really heartwarming to hear. And Charles, this pumps up my energy, at 10:30 at night. So just keep interrupting me if you hear more of this. So yeah. Going ahead, so I will take you through the process of creating such powerful unified dashboards. I will take the example of marketing lead generation, and the steps in brief would be, let's say you first of all create a Visio diagram and upload it on SharePoint online or OneDrive for Business. Further on, just like you import your data in Power BI, there's a way to import your Visio diagram in Power BI again. So further on, we map the Power BI data to shapes in the Visio diagram. Going further, we define the interactions. For example, you saw that when I selected a shape, it did a zoom on that area, it did a highlight. So all the Power BI interactions that work for charts, graphs, they work for Visio shapes as well. So we go ahead and define interactions if we want to, and then you can just go ahead and share the dashboard with your team or other stakeholders. So I'll take you through a demo for this. Okay, let's start from here. By the way, this is the PBIX file, which you can actually go ahead and download from the first link that Charles had shared with you, which is also posted here. We just saw the
and I'll repaste it as well.
Right. So this is the link, Visio Visual sample download. So it will download this entire PBIX for you, and you can go ahead and make changes and try out how it works out for you. Right. So let's start with the demo. You go to the marketplace here. Okay. Search for Visio and add it to your report. So it was already added for me. Yeah, it was already added for me. Delete it, cancel. Let's not do it. So here it is. Okay, my Power BI desktop is giving me a bit of jitters today. Let's see. Okay, I'll move to my backup in that case.
While you're going to your backup, can I ask you a question?
I don't know. My desktop is a little jittery today. It's hanging. Yeah.
So Merrick is saying he's actually used it for a little while, and he loves it.
Okay.
But every time he goes to actually refresh the page that he's got this Visio, he always gets
Mhm.
prompted for the login. Is there any way you can actually get it to cache the credentials so it doesn't actually prompt the password every time he opens a report?
So is this in the Power BI web scenario or the Power BI desktop scenario?
I think it's actually the Power BI web scenario. Is that right, Merrick? We're going to get Merrick to confirm that in
So
a couple minutes.
okay, so Charles, in either case, we are aware of this issue that there is not. So this is an experience gap and not an issue. So we are aware of this experience gap where users are actually asked to sign in every time they actually insert a Visio visual. So we are working on it. Let's see where we get with it. But right now there are technical challenges to just have a seamless experience here where you're logged into your Power BI and it doesn't ask you to sign into SharePoint Online. For now, caching is not possible at our end. So this is an ask we are aware of already. So I can update offline if needed, but that's the status I have for this right
That
now.
sounds perfect. It's you're aware of it, and you guys are something you're looking at. Okay, good.
Yeah. So this is still not working for me. Okay. Looks like the desktop app itself is,
And for
yeah.
those of you on the phone, we did test it out ahead of time. We actually do due diligence, and the demo gods are going to work this way sometimes.
Okay, so I've moved to the web, Power BI web now. So just click on this and it inserts the Visio visual. Now, yeah. So I go ahead, link my ID to it. So now here, here is where it is asking me for a Visio diagram. I'll tell you where we can get our Visio diagram from. So this is a Visio diagram, which is hosted on SharePoint Online. I have it in my files here. So I just opened it and this is where it is hosted. I'll go ahead and probably edit it a bit in Visio Online itself. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just add a shape here. So this diagram talks about, let's say, marketing lead monitoring. So there are a lot of steps probably. A marketing team would want to track. They would get leads from, let's say, trial sign up, organic sign up, or contact me sign up, and they would want to see. This is the process they probably follow. They all of these sign ups land in the sales queue, and then there's telesales that happens and field sales that happens. So ultimately, what opportunity gets converted? So this is the Visio diagram for this scenario. Yeah. So I just complete my flowchart here. That's all. So I hit save. So now what we're going to do is we're going to copy the link for this diagram. Go back to our Power BI Visio Visual. I will just paste this here and hit connect. While this loads, I will also add, let's say, another chart here. And yeah, it's there. In the chart, I'll again add, let's say, ID. And so the data, the Excel data that I have here, which was imported in my Power BI report, again had this thing. Each of these steps has an ID, has an actual actuals data for it, and then target data for it. And then there's a gap between the actuals and the target. So this is basically the data that I'm using here. In the chart, I'll add actuals versus target, right? So now the Visio file is loaded. You can see a field mapping pane here. In the field mapping pane, the ID is linked to the shapes in this diagram. Okay, so when you see here, these checkboxes, they stand for each, this data that you see is each step in the diagram. And this is coming from your Power BI data. So there is some intelligent mapping that happened here. It took the shape text here and mapped it to the data directly. But we can see that there are two shapes which are not mapped. They were there in the Power BI data, but they're not linked with my Visio shapes. So I can go ahead and do it manually. Okay, so all my shapes are now linked to my Power BI data, right? Now I want to go ahead and, let's say, drag a field in the values well here. Now you can see that you can see colors. This is again coming from the Power BI data. I'm going to set colors here. So let me do this thing. I'll delete all the ranges. No. So what I'm trying to do here is that for the gap, for a gap at each of the shapes in the process, I just want to denote it with the help of colors, different colors. Let me set it to, let's say 0.7 is, so when there's less of gap, I would want to do a nice green there. Then probably I'll want to do a 0.7 to we do a yellow there. Okay, that's too bad. This is, I'll go ahead and probably add another range here. Okay. Probably do 3, 2, 1. So as the gap increases, I would want them to be red, like bright red. So now this is done. I can also have more overlays here. So I do I add my targets. I add my actuals. Okay. So now if you see clearly, the actuals and my targets show as text over my shape. My colors denote the gap between actuals and my targets for each step in the shape, right? So this is how you can actually embed a Visio file in a diagram. If you now go and if you want to check the interactions now, yeah. So this is a step which is red, and again the targets are way higher than the actuals, and probably there is corrective action that's needed here. Charles, was this helpful? Do you want me to, as in this is what I have for the create demo?
That was
I hope
really
this was helpful.
helpful, and there's a lot of people we're asking about the relationship between Visio and SharePoint. Do I have to have SharePoint in order to actually host these Visio files? That was the question from Esraf. No, Zakir. Maybe I got that wrong. I'll have to go back and look. But can you go into talk about the relationship between Visio Online and SharePoint?
Right. So Visio files would be needed would need to be hosted on SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business. That's a requirement right now. We're using SharePoint as a host for the files. So we are not using Power BI as a host for the files right now. So that's correct that SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business would be needed to host these files.
Okay. And Zakir was asking, I have no idea. Can you actually change the direction of those arrows dynamically? So right now in your Visio diagram, you've actually got the arrows pointing one way. He wanted to know, or she, I don't know if what gender Zakir is, if you can actually change those based on some change.
Based on some change. So this is okay. You're saying that in the Visio diagram.
All the arrows are.
I can change it from the UI here. I'm not sure.
I think you're talking about dynamically. So if you had some value.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's supported right now. I don't think so. This is something that is not supported right now. I can get back to you offline on this, but this is something, this is something I know that the UI supports on changing the arrow shapes. I can delete it. I can create new arrow shapes, arrows here, and then the changes can also be reflected. The changes can also be reflected in my diagram here. So once you update your diagram here, you can go ahead and refresh the diagram from here, and it will update the changes that were made to the Visio diagram. So all the changes that are needed in the file need to be need to be made in the file, Visio Online file. The embedded file here will support color by value, text overlay, and it won't support changes to the Visio file. Does that make sense?
It does.
Right.
And then, it's actually in the Visio or in the PBIX file itself. But somebody was asking about the data set that you're showing in that PBIX. So I pasted the link in a couple times. I don't know why Asraf is having problems. It looked like it was working for me. But Asraf, the file that Shakan is looking at right now, the data is actually in there, as is the link to that Visio diagram itself. So that is actually the download. I just pasted it back in there. And then that is the PBIX, which actually points back to the VSTX file that they're hosting for you. I guess some of the people may want the VSTX files themselves. Is there an easy place, or is that back in the your samples? I see that you have a samples download online as well for the VSTX
Right.
files.
So I can share the links to the files. They're shared as guest access. I can do that offline later. But right, I need to fetch the link for where these files are hosted.
Okay, got it.
Um,
Makes
so
perfect
what I can
sense.
do is I can share with you, or I can share in the comments directly later.
Actually, the comments go away. Oh, actually, no, I take it back. The
No,
comments
the
underneath,
YouTube
yeah,
comments.
not the chat.
Yeah.
That'd be ideal. And then once you do that, I'll actually put it on my Twitter feed, and we'll update the blog post that actually announced it as well. So that would be awesome.
Right.
Let's see. Asraf says the link isn't working for him. So Asraf, a couple people got the link working, and I just
Okay.
verified.
So I was just
Yeah,
checking for
I
another link if possible.
and I just verified it. It is working. The last link I just pasted is
Okay.
working for
Okay.
me. So Asraf, you're
Okay.
going to want to check another browser because it is working. David Lee actually said he actually was able to download it. So we've got a couple access that indicate it's working right now. So it may be a browser issue at this point, not letting PBIX files come down because underneath the
Mhm.
covers they do look like zip files.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's a PBIX download actually. So
Yeah.
okay. So the next thing I want to cover under this, Charles, is there's a feature here to change the diagram link.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've embedded the Visio diagram, you may want to go and probably put another diagram here instead of the one that you loaded earlier.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's see if this is loading, but the link will nevertheless work. Okay, this is the feature that's there. If it takes time to load, we'll move further. So, change diagram link will allow users to move to another diagram. This is a feature that was added as late as last month. So, yeah, this was something that we heard from our users, from our customers. You can also go ahead and probably change this setting here. So, as you saw earlier, I was selecting a shape and it was zooming to a particular area in the diagram. Yeah, so it's loaded. It's taking time. It's a heavy file. Yeah. So you can go ahead and disable auto zoom here. Now, if you disable auto zoom, it won't zoom to the area. It'll just highlight. Okay, it'll just highlight the shape in focus. So now the auto zoom is turned off.
And that's really nice because what will happen is you'll actually get lost into diagrams and maps. Same thing happens in maps.
Right.
That's actually a really nice feature.
Okay. So so the mapping is not done yet. So it will work when the zoom will work once the auto zoom is on and the mapping is done properly. There's no mapping that's done here right now. So again, in this case, because I just had an ad hoc file which I inserted here. So if you want to map shapes manually, you can again go ahead, select a shape and just select an ID. So this is how manual mapping works. But automatic mapping or auto mapping gets kicked in, which is the intelligent way of mapping your shapes. If your Visio file is made that way, if the shape text matches, so there's something called shape data in Visio. If there's shape data, which is just like metadata for each of the shapes, if the shape data is set, the auto mapping will kick in and do a lot of work for you. Okay, so let's go back and see what we have next. Yeah. So
Now,
I covered.
yeah, I do have a question. Is that last couple months, people like, oh God, who was it? Scott says he's been playing with it. Merrick says he's been playing with it. It's been marked as preview. When do we look to see that actually becoming generally available? Is that soon?
Right. So we are working towards making it generally available, but I do not have any concrete dates for you right now. Again, it'll be announced whenever we have the date. We will announce it. So right now we are working towards it for sure. So in the meantime, we're adding features, even though it's in preview. We're working on performance improvements. So there are a bunch of things that are happening. Yeah, GA will we don't have a date to be honest. So
Okay,
I will let you know. Yeah,
that's
we'll
fine.
have to let you know.
I'm excited for it to come out. That's good. Okay.
Yeah. So If you now, so these were the demos that I had, and now if you look at what you can get from unified dashboards, you can get your business intelligence, for example, your KPIs, or you can do your analysis, or you can track your goals using charts and graphs, which Power BI visuals support already. Power BI supports already. So now, if you want real world context in your reports, for example, the floor plan that we saw, then, if you want to depict interactions between shapes, for example, in a network diagram, you would want to show interactions that are there. You would want to see the sequence in process diagrams. We saw two examples of two process diagrams. One was the create scenario. There wasn't a loan approval process. So there's sequence. So all of this is real world context, and there's spatial context that comes into a dashboard using Visio diagrams, which gives you operational intelligence in the end. So you're able to see the full picture with the unified dashboards. Yeah. Okay, so you did ask me about the GA. So while I don't have the GA timelines, I do have a timeline which tells how far we have come from the preview. We did a private preview where we had actually invited people to try the Visio Visual. This was released only for Power BI Web. In sometime in August, we added support for Power BI Web as well as desktop, and this was a public preview. This is something that you're using right now. So after that, we've been adding. We added support for Power BI Mobile as well in September, and then further on, we've been adding features like the auto zoom feature that you saw, the refresh diagram feature that I demoed, and then as recent as end of February, we introduced a change diagram link in the Visio Visual. So sometime around end of March, you will also see this feature where you can copy the diagram URL and probably locate where you're or open the diagram in your browser using the URL. So this is how far we have come from our first release. Okay, so Charles, this is what I had, and so users can or viewers can actually reach us at telvisio@microsoft.com. We are very responsive there. So yes, so just drop us direct emails at telvisio. So Charles also shared the Visio Visual playbook earlier. It's at aka.ms/Visio Visual Playground. It's misspelled here. That's a very bad mistake. Yeah. So Visio Visual Playground, and then there's aka.ms Visio Visual Help, where you will get documentation around or the support article for using Visio Visual. It also has a step-by-step guide on how you can actually embed Visio files in your reports. So Charles, if we have any questions, we can take that. This is the demo I had. Let me see if I can show some more examples.
That's actually really, really good. I think you've actually answered most of these guys' questions. Scott Helmers, I don't know who you are, but you're a great help on answering the questions. So thank you very much for that. Zakir, thank you very much for actually having used it. Looks like you've been playing with them for a little while. Oh my God, those are beautiful. What is the name of that diagram? It's not a force diagram.
It's a root cause analysis diagram. So how the quality of a product is monitored, and there are a lot of conditions. So are the working conditions good? Are the raw material? So there should be no janitor in the background cleaning stuff. So that's why the quality of the product.
I noticed they stopped, so either they've left or they're gotten quieter. So that's good.
No, I got them.
I need to help you work with you on your palettes for the right hand side of your that monochrome blues and greens are okay.
Right.
But they need to go back and match your Visio diagram. But this is awesome. So Sakan, thank you very, very, very much for reaching out. Thank you very much for actually delivering this. John Fitzpatrick and Joseph both said they called it a fishbone diagram. I love it. It's actually very nice looking. And then several requests for the VSDX files that you're actually just showing. So if you can make sure and put those back into the comments, we're going to give our viewers today 27 minutes of their day back. And you've done, and actually, I don't think I told you this, but for every 10 minutes that you're early, I owe you a beer. And every 10 minutes that you go over, you owe me a beer. And I didn't tell you that ahead of time, but I think I owe you 3 beers or 3 glasses of wine or a beverage of your choice next time we actually see each other at Tech Ready. So thank you very much, guys. And we're going to go ahead and bring this off, and Shikan can take those last couple minutes to give pointers to her VSTX files. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Charles, for this opportunity.